What's going on, guys? Today I have for you my predictions for the Western Conference semifinals. Let's get into it. So starting with the Clippers versus the Nuggets, obviously the Nuggets are coming off a tough 7-game series against the Jazz in which they came back from a 3-1 deficit. Jamal Murray went crazy, averaging 32 points and 6 assists on 55, 53, 90 shooting splits. And Jokic had a great all-around series, ending it with a game-winning shot to send the Jazz home. However, the Clippers are not the Jazz. While Donovan Mitchell just played out of his mind, averaging even more points than Murray on better efficiency, the Clippers have way more firepower than the Jazz, better perimeter defenders, and have one of the best players on the planet in Kawhi. Kawhi just averaged 32 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, and almost 3 steals on great efficiency against the Mavs. But the Clippers are so much more than just Kawhi. His Robin is Paul George, who didn't have the best series. Everyone was dogging him on Twitter, but let's not forget what this man is capable of. It was just one season ago where he was third in MVP voting, playing alongside Westbrook, and he averaged 22 points a game while shooting 41% from 3 and playing solid defense in the regular season. They have great role players like Pat Bev, who is listed as probable for Game 1, the 2 Sixth-Man of the Year candidates in Montrez and Lou Will, and other solid players such as Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, and Landry Shamet. They are probably the deepest team in the playoffs and have different guys stepping up every game. Marcus Morris, who was a late acquisition in the season, shot 54% from 3 on 4 attempts against the Mavs, and Reggie Jackson, Shamet, and Beverly all shot over 40% on at least 4 attempts. While it was clear that Paul George was choking and not playing like his usual self, I don't think we will see that from him as often in this series. He said he was in a dark place in the bubble, feeling some sort of depression and anxiety, and we saw how he exploded in Game 5, dropping 35 points on amazing efficiency. Although he did go back to his struggles the next game, barely shooting over 30% from the field, which is a little concerning for the Clippers. Luka torched this team, but I think Luka would have played this well against any team. He is proving himself as probably the most promising young star in the league. While this series did go to 6 games, it could have gone to 7 if Porzingis never got injured, or if he wasn't called for some questionable techs in Game 1, but we can't change what happened in the past. So the real question is, how did the Nuggets match up against the Clippers? I think it's pretty obvious that LA is the favorite and should be able to win this series in less than 7 games. But let's say Murray plays out of his mind like he did last series, and Jokic is able to play even better than his usual self. Do the Nuggets have a chance? While I doubt this happens, I think the answer is yes. If Paul George's struggles continue and Kawhi has to backpack this team to wins every night, we could be looking at a 7-game series. But I think it's really dependent on how the Nuggets duo plays. If Murray plays like he did in the regular season, which was good, but not nearly the superstar level we saw against the Jazz, then they don't really stand a chance. Looking at their other players, Denver was missing Gary Harris for every game of the series except for Game 7, which we did see how he impacted Donovan Mitchell as he was able to slow him down a bit. And Jeremy Grant even stepped up playing great defense down the stretch. However, I think the true X factor besides the 2 stars is Michael Porter Jr. I'm not sure how much playtime he's going to get, but on the offensive end, he's proven that he can be a legitimate threat from anywhere on the court. He's a big forward that could handle the ball, finish, and shoot, but is he able to play that well against the Clippers defense? It's hard to speculate on that question, but I think it's fair to say he probably won't get too much playing time because his defense is awful. The only way he stays on the court is if he catches fire like he was in some of the bubble games before the playoffs. Now back to the Clippers, I think they have a great matchup because they have guys that can defend on the perimeter and strong guys down low such as Montrez. Their attention should be on closing out on Murray when coming off screens and making sure Jokic doesn't heat up too much. I think Gobert did a good job against Jokic for the most part, shutting him down almost every time he drove to the rim, but can the Clippers do the same? Even if they did, Jokic shot great from mid-range and from 3. And he's much bigger than Montrez. But I think Kawhi and PG are going to be too tough an assignment for the Nuggets to hang around for long, so it shouldn't matter too much if Jokic is really hard to guard. I would say that the Clippers win this series in 6 games, and it shouldn't go any more than that unless Paul George completely forgets how to play basketball. Now moving on to the Lakers vs Rockets. So I'm recording this right after game 7 when the Rockets beat OKC in a close game. The whole series was back and forth with the Thunder coming out cold, but we're able to stretch it to 7 games. If we're being honest, this series shouldn't have really gone 7 considering the Thunder weren't even supposed to make the playoffs, but since Houston was missing Westbrook for half of the games, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I think the main takeaway from this series should be that the Rockets have great role players that can step up and help out the stars, but they're very inconsistent at times. Eric Gordon shot terrible from the field, but Covington was shooting around 50% from 3 and Jeff Green was in the mid-40s. If they want to have a chance against the Lakers, they're going to need everyone on the team hitting their open shots. I think it's also important to mention that Harden had a horrible Game 7 offensively. Yes, he had a game-winning block on Dort, but he continues to crumble under the pressure of closeout games, and the Lakers are a much better team than OKC. Westbrook is going to have to play like he did in the regular season after trading Capella, but that might be difficult considering the Lakers have a ton of guys that can protect the rim. The Lakers are coming off a very long break after sending the Blazers home, who some people even thought they had a chance of upsetting the Lakers. Obviously that didn't go too well. While the Blazers got off to a hot start, their momentum fizzled out shortly after. Dame cooled off a little bit, especially when the Lakers decided to double team him on most possessions and keep the ball out of his hands. AD had a great series against them, shooting around 60% from the mid-range and almost 40% from 3. LeBron started the series off slow, but then went into his usual playoff mode and ended up averaging 27 points, 9 boards, 10 assists on 60% from the field and 46% from 3. So say what you will about LeBron, but he still has that extra gear that he can go into when his team needs him to be a scorer. Besides the 2 stars, the Lakers role players didn't really step up at all. I'm sure most of you've seen all the memes about Danny Green, and Kuzma wasn't much better, only shooting 40% from the field and 30% from 3. Besides them, I think their third best player was actually Dwight Howard. He played solid defense and was very effective when the Lakers needed to throw it to a big man besides AD. Caruso also played really well on the defensive end and was making some great passes, but he definitely struggled to hit his open shots just like the other role players. While this may be cause for concern against the Rockets, I think Houston should be more worried about defending the paint because that is where the Lakers are most successful. I think the Rockets only truly have a chance in this series if they're able to catch fire from 3 and slow down the Lakers in the paint. Obviously that's easier said than done when you're dealing with extremely athletic finishers in AD and LeBron, as well as Dwight and JaVale catching lobs. Normally I wouldn't mention those 2 offensively, but because the Rockets decided to go all in on small ball, they're going to have their hands full when trying to defend the paint. PJ Tucker plays much bigger than his height of 6'5", but how far can you really stretch that when there's 3 to 4 guys in the court that are 6'9" or taller? I know Robert Covington is 6'8" and is definitely capable of being a rim protector when they need him to be, but if we're talking about a 7-game series in which the Lakers have tons of time to prepare, I'm not sure that Rocco and Tucker are enough to slow down the Lakers' interior scoring. Obviously, they're coached by D'Antoni, who lives and dies by the 3-ball, so they have a shot at keeping up with the Lakers offensively. However, Harden cannot have a game like he did in Game 7 of the OKC series and expect to win. On top of that, they're going to need more guys to hit shots such as Tucker, Gordon, and Rocco. Even if the Rockets are able to get everyone going and hitting their open looks, is that enough to take down the Lakers? If AD isn't playing his best, then LeBron will turn to the locomotive that he is and just barrel his way to the basket. So my issue with the Rockets here is that even if they're able to catch fire from 3, it's going to be very hard to beat the Lakers 4 times in a 7-game series. So my prediction here is that the Lakers will win this series in 5 to 6 games, just like I predicted the Nuggets-Clippers series to go. I just think the Rockets have a really bad matchup here because their whole team is based around being small, while the Lakers are definitely one of the bigger teams in the league, with guys that know how to score on smaller defenders. With that being said, the favorites should prevail in both series, but I did mention a few small scenarios in which either team could be taken down. If everything goes as planned for the Lakers and Clippers, we should be seeing a Battle of LA in the Western Conference Finals. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, leave a comment down below with your predictions and drop a like if you enjoyed. If you're new here or haven't subscribed yet, please be sure to do so. I'll be posting 1 to 2 videos a week talking about the NBA and the playoffs. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.